Good evening, everyone. It's Master Jose Torres coming to you live with the Martial Arts Experience. And we're excited to bring you our newest episode 6 here with you on Monday. Without further ado, we don't want to waste any time. I'm very excited to have this amazing individual on the show today. Let's bring him on, and it is Mr. Kevin Pereira. How are you, Kevin? How's everything, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Now, Kevin, you are based now out of, you're formerly a New York boy, right? New York.
I'm born and brought and bred. Yeah, New York, Bronx, New York, my entire life.
And you're in Virginia now, right?
Yeah, Blackstone. We moved to the middle of nowhere.
Now that's got to be a big difference from the city life, right?
Big time. When we thought about, because the original goal or any goal, end goal is to eventually own a home, right? That's everybody's American dream. The reality is doing that in New York, it makes it very, very difficult. Not just property tax, but just cost of living is insane. Like
Yeah.
we were renting out of a place that went for $1.6 million, and it was half the size of the house I own now.
Wow.
So my mortgage is less than half of what my rent was, which is crazy, right?
Wow.
So we made this decision. My stepson originally wanted to join the Navy. So when he wanted to join the Navy, we were like, you know what? Most times they base people in Virginia, right? It's a big military town. So we ended up over here, and we love it. It's quiet. It's nice. No one bothers you. I haven't had any discord with anyone here, like not even a little bit in the store, anywhere.
Wow.
Um, it's really been nice. I still keep my Bronx spidey senses, with the
Right.
peripherals, but it's very different here. Like even driving, if you stop at like a 3-point stop, people will let you go. Versus New York, where everybody's trying to like get in front of you.
Right. 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 Wow.
Yeah.
So Kevin, how long have you been in the martial arts now?
I started my career in 1986. Uh,
Wow.
and this is something I had to clarify myself as a kid because, you're a kid, you're around this stuff, and you don't really think about timelines. It's just a part of your life.
Right.
Uh, but I get clarification from obviously parents. Oh, you were this old, you were that old. So I was 5. I'm 43 now. Um, and it's been quite a journey. I was an extremely shy kid. I'm someone, and I'll be transparent about this. I talk about mental health all the time. I was diagnosed much later in life with anxiety and ADHD.
Wow.
Um, so I was very shy as a kid, but I had a lot of energy. So my dad, being the tough guy that he was one of those tough guys that he grew up in the, I don't want to say in the streets, but he did, spent time away before I was born. Um, and he did his training, and he's like, I don't want my kid to be a punk. And that's where it began. Like my mom actually did some boxing in Puerto Rico. My dad did martial arts, jujitsu. His brother is a jujitsu instructor. It seems to be a family thing. My brother did taekwondo, has a second dan. The only person who hasn't trained in my immediate family is my sister. Oddly
Okay.
enough, yeah, she's like it's for boys. But that's when I started was in '86, and I've just been lucky to have a lot of great instructors. It's because of my ADHD. It sparked this. What's this? What's that? Why do we do this? So every time I got an answer, I wanted to seek the root, right? So when I was studying the Sado system, I know it was comprised of Kyokushin. Kyokushin is Goju and Shotokan. I wanted to learn more about Goju. So I would go into that thing. So to backtrack again, yeah, 1986, I started under the tutelage of uncles and family members. And then I started training with Tadashi Nakamura, and my cousin went there first. I wanted to do American Kempo. And my cousin's like, yeah, it's the same thing. Because we're little kids, right? He's like 12, 11 at the time. He's like, it's the same thing, I promise you. I'm like, okay. He's like, plus you have experience, you'll pick it up. So the first thing my dad told me was, don't tell them you have experience. I'm like, why? He's like, because they're going to put extra pressure on you. It's a different art. I came up doing jujitsu, Japanese jujitsu, and this was karate. And right away, the instructor, first class, he sees me throwing reverse punches. He's like, do you have experience? I'm like, no. No, I've never done this before. He's like, okay. And I remember as a brown belt, I had one of the Shihans come up to me. They're like, have you trained before? Because you have like a different thing to you. And I was like, well, a little bit. I'm like,
Right. Right.
okay,
Right.
always try to be mysterious. But
Right.
yeah, I've been really fortunate to have some great instructors and been very interested in studying various arts, taijutsu, different styles of Japanese jiu-jitsu, Okinawan goju-ryu, Kyokushin, Kobujitsu, American Kempo. So
Wow.
I've been fortunate to train with a lot of good people.
What's the current system that you're progressing in, or that you are pushing your students to do?
Okay, so it's my art. I founded my art in 2009,
Nice.
and that was kind of something that happened by accident. I was training under a gentleman by the name of Grandmaster Mark Klein and working for him in New Jersey. And when I decided to start shifting away from that and starting, because I was in New York but traveling back and forth, and it was becoming too much. I was traveling almost 22 hours a week
Wow.
because I didn't have a car on a train.
Oh,
So after a while, I got the opportunity. I believe it was Kyoshi Bruce Ortiz. Uh, he's the founder of Taekwondo, and he teaches Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's one of the professors at one of the Gracie schools in Queens. He got me the opportunity to teach for a spirit. So he's like, I used to teach there years ago. I know the guy who's looking for an instructor. Would you want to do it? I'm like, sure. So I wanted to stick with under the banner of who I was with, but they wanted like a fee for
right,
the logo. And I'm like, I'm getting paid like $20 an hour to teach kids karate for like
right,
2 hours a night. Like
right.
I'm not gonna pay you $600 a month to get a logo. So I'm the type of person, because I've always been into history, that I'm not just gonna say I'm teaching karate or martial arts. So that's when I started kind of workshopping a name.
Okay.
And I spoke to a friend of mine, Eric Wong is his name, and he does speak some Japanese. And I had asked him, I said, how do you say lion in Japanese? Like Kishi.
Mm.
Okay. Because my parents are from Ponce, Puerto Rico. And
Oh
the
wow.
logo, flag over there is the lion.
Right, right.
And
Yeah,
my
yeah.
parents are both Leo. My mother's July 28th, and my father, God rest his soul, was August 1st.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, Leos, lions. I love Superman, the House of El. So I wanted to call the school the House of Lions as an homage to them.
Oh
Because,
wow.
usually names of styles came from families or locations,
Right.
you know. And the original idea I had was to use my last name. And in Japanese, the last name would be Nashiki, which means pear tree. Pereira means pear tree in Portuguese. And I'm like, that sounds corny. I don't like it. So I stuck with the House of Lions.
Right, right, right.
But I
That's all.
promised myself that I would continue to train, because once you stop evolving, you die.
Right.
So around that time, I had hooked up with a gentleman who's still my instructor to this day, Hanshi Leon Major, um, for just guidance. Because he had asked me, who are you under? Are you under any organizations? And I'm like, right now, I'm solo, flying solo. And he's like, I want to help, never charge me a dime. That's one of the
Wow.
I'm going to put that to rest right now. A lot of people have this misconception that I pay for a lot of things. And I will tell people, anyone who knows me, Boricua knows I'm Zeta. I am doodle. I'm super cheap, man. Like, I'm cheap. Like, I wanted this shirt really bad. It's a Seth Rollins wrestling shirt. And instead of buying it myself, I sent the link to my son when it was on sale and said, get this for Father's Day.
Smart, smart.
So, he trained me free. Took
Wow.
promotion free. He's like, I want to help another Boricua. I want
Wow.
to help another person that I know is looking to improve themselves. So I would go to his house every Saturday, and we would do 4 hours. We would do 1 hour weapons, 1 hour jujitsu, 1 hour kempo, and then sometimes we would switch between taijutsu and something, whatever came into his mind that day.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had that blessing to train with him. So throughout my training, I said to myself, whatever I earn, I'm going to input into the style. And the style is going to be something that continues to grow, and it's not going to stay the same.
Right.
So if you see the curriculum from when I started the system to what it is now, the kata are different. Everything about it is different. So the guys that are black belts under me are like, really? And that's how I keep you on your toes, though, right? Keep adding things and changing things and switching things around. But yeah, so it's my art. It's called Shishi Rubu Jitsu. And the school is called the Shishikan, the Lion House, and it's basically just an amalgamation of everything I've done: Filipino martial arts, and, some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I hold a blue belt in that. I've done Gracie combatives, so that I implemented into it as well, but also with my own little flavor. The jujitsu stuff and the Okinawan stuff, the Japanese stuff, everything just kind of
Masha.
meshes into my own little flavor.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. What do you feel so out of your system? The basis is there's one specific style that's like your bread and butter that you're like, you know what, this was really what gave me my foundation to create your own system. Like, is there one system that stood out?
Um, Honestly, not necessarily, because I feel like this might be weird or tooting my own horn. I feel like when people see me perform, it's hard to pinpoint what it is or where it came from because all the flavors are similar, but they're different. Like if I'm doing tonfa, my tonfa will reflect my bow. My bow is gonna reflect my sword. My sword's gonna reflect my knife. So I'm moving these weapons kind of more in a Filipino kind of flow. So
Okay.
sometimes people are like, that's not very Japanese. And I'm like, well,
Right.
it's not my art, right? It
Right.
might
Right.
have
Right.
stemmed from Japanese and Okinawan Kobudo being married, but I'm going to give it my own flavor. So, I mean, if I were to say that if there's any like base, it would just be me and my experiences because I'm very big on the idea. This is something, I'm sure you know this already. The old instructors had less students because most of the students were private. So they molded the art to the student,
Right.
not the student to the art, right?
Right.
So what I did was I just kind of worked around my physicality. I'm a wide guy, so I use my chest, even my stomach sometimes to do arm bars, believe it or not, and things like that. And if I have students who are smaller in build, I'll modify the technique for them. I'm like, oh, this is how you would change.
Right.
Not to say the technique doesn't work, but I'm also a lot bigger than you. I have a bigger
Right.
chest than you, bigger shoulders. So things do have to be modified in terms of getting the crank, right? Where your body should be when you're cranking somebody. Just like if I'm 6'2" and I'm doing an arm bar versus 5'9", your body does shift. Even though it might look the same on the floor, there is a difference in where your legs are placed and your hips and so on and so forth. So
Right.
it's just the ideology of knowing that the art should transform into the person. It should blend to the person. The person, each one of my students have a different flow, but you can tell they all came from me, if that makes sense, because of
Right.
who they are and
Right.
how and they just have like their own experiences. So you can see, them throwing that sazon here and the achote here.
Right, right, right. Now, as far as students, you do a lot of. Obviously, you have your new residents now in Virginia, but you also do a lot of online training too, right? You have students that they do Zoom and some other ways with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that started originally a little bit before the pandemic, actually, because I had a guy that was interested in training with me and he was in Wisconsin.
Wow.
A gentleman named is Christian Martinez. And he has a bunch of experience. He's a wrestling coach out there and Aikido and all this stuff. And he kind of gravitated towards what I was doing. So I started it originally with him. And then during the pandemic, it grew. So I started having students in Australia, South Africa. I had a guy in Germany, California, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma. And we would just do a Zoom and I would have all these different places Michigan on the Zoom. You see all these different faces, and I would take pictures and post them. And like tonight, we had Maine in the house and Rhode Island in the house, and there's so much you can do online. That's one of the biggest controversies now, right? There should be hands-on, but I think for me, a lot of these people have experience. Most of the people who approach me are already black belts. Some of them are already instructors. So I think it's easier to transmit this information online to someone who's been doing it already for 20 years, if I'm being
Right.
frank.
Right.
It's not like training someone who's never trained before on the internet. Most of these guys have their own schools somewhere.
Right. Right. Now, Kevin, do you feel like so? Did you feel that you kind of got? Were you well received when you were doing a lot of the Zoom training, or did you feel that people were commenting? How were you affected by that?
Um, I don't think people commented until recently, and it wasn't so much necessarily about me, just in general. I see people posting about it. Like, oh, how can you train someone online? How can someone be trained online? Like, you can do it. It takes a lot of, I'm gonna say this, skill. It's not easy to explain. I'm going to turn my hand. I'm going to do this. And not make it boring.
Right.
Um, I'm very big on punchlines. This is something I got from Grandmaster Klein. Every time he taught something valuable, he'd give you a joke.
Right.
And I say, why? And he was like, think of a joke. And I'm trying to think of a joke. He goes, all right. Do you remember how it starts? I'm like, not really. tell me the punchline. All jokes, you remember the punchline. I give him
Right.
the punchline. He's like, that punchline is gonna stick with you. So if you tell a joke when you're giving a technique, the punchline is the technique, it's gonna stick with the student.
Wow.
And I'm like, really? And I didn't think it was a thing. And he's like, it's all psychology, man. Trust me. And he would show me. He was doing this to like 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. I'm like, it works. So it was something that I gravitated towards, just kind of like making those little jokes and trying to make it not boring. And I
Right.
do a lot of comparisons to things. Everything is a movement that's based off of something you've done before. If I have to put on a seatbelt, what does it look like? Throw,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I try to explain things in a way that's it's not easy. When I first started doing it, I'm like, how am I going to do this? This is not easy. How am I going to do it? And there's sometimes where I didn't even have an uke because I'm very big on showing, not telling. So
Right.
even when I do my basics, I will explain to you what this is, what that is. And I'm going to give you like 6 applications for it. And I usually say, hey, I have my wife. My wife tends to be my uke a lot on videos. If you look at certain videos I have when I was in Brooklyn, she's like my uke 90% of the time. Um, so yeah, I mean, it wasn't really bad received back then, but I do see people talking about others training online now
Right.
and just kind of making a mockery of it. Oh, how can someone, back in my day in the 70s? And I'm like, I get that, but if you want information from somebody who's not near you and
Right.
you're not going to take a flight every week, right? How do you
Right.
obtain
Right.
this information? I
Right.
firmly believe that if this technology was around when Miyagi, Funakoshi, Otobuchoki, all these guys were doing their thing, I can guarantee you they would be having Zoom meetings and training and changing ideas.
Right.
You know,
Right. Right. Well, and I think, before we went on air, we talked about, the philosophy and, the cult atmosphere and how everybody tried to kind of keep things quiet, and obviously you've been great on the internet with explaining and, questioning things and kind of, stirring the pot and getting people excited, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to honor. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some people may call it informative. Some people may call it investigative reporting. Some people may call it, you're stirring the pot, you know what I mean? Controversial, but, I love what you do. And I think
I
that's
appreciate
important, because you're not just going with the answers because, martial arts was so hidden in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And you took a word of mouth of what it was. That's all that it was, right? And then these whopper stories that, people were doing this and people were doing that, and it's crazy. So how did you first, with your platform, with Facebook and you having the presence, when did you first decide, you know what? I think I'm gonna start posting this. I'm gonna start challenging some of these things. Like what clicked for you when you're like, man, you know what? I need to open my mouth. What went off? When did it happen? Do you remember or no?
you. Just conversations with students. Carlos Del Valle, one of them, Jose Perez, another one, my teacher Leon Major, even the teacher I had at the time, I'm gonna give him his shine. He's probably not gonna want to hear his name. His name is Scott Mertz. He lives out in Okinawa. Has a wealth of knowledge. So I got a lot of information from him. So he would just talk. Sometimes he would call me at like weird times, and we would just have these video chats because there's a time difference, 12-hour time difference in
Right.
Okinawa. And he would just say these things to me, and I'm like, we should put this on video. And he's like, you should put it on video. I'm like, why me? And everybody's like, just say what you feel. I'm
Right.
like, I know, but I got me in trouble a lot because, well, yeah, when I first started making videos, right? Anytime I got a bad comment, I didn't receive it in the best way. And usually my response was, well, come feel it. Here's my dojo. Here's the
Right.
address. Here are the times. Here's the mat. And it sounded like I was threatening people, but I wasn't. I have a firm belief that, and this is an Ed Parker quote, right? To hear is to doubt, to see is to be deceived, but to feel is to believe. You have to feel a technique.
Of
I
course.
have a friend, David Falcaro. He does Aikido Jiu-Jitsu. And people comment and make all kinds of jokes on his videos. When I first saw him do some, it was a lot. I'm like, do that on me. I thought my arm was going to explode. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
thing about it is how to get to this position, but
Right.
still it's valuable.
Right.
Um, I've always been someone who was very blunt, and I try to tone that down a little bit because with the bluntness sometimes comes too much realness, and I tend to use a lot of profanity when I kind of
Right.
start
Right.
going.
Yeah.
So I try to reel that in a little, but then I said to myself, I think it's time to start stirring up the pot in a different way.
Right.
And that's, just the truth, because a lot of people have this false idolization of a lot of people. We're not just talking about Asian martial artists, but like the people they feel are pioneers. We have to look at the real history behind it, right? Like if I'm a GI, and I myself wasn't in the military, but a lot of my students were. Um, Jose Perez was an MT, Carlos Del Valle was a Marine, a couple of other students were Marines, Navies, etc. And they tell you when you do a tour and you're in a foreign country, you're not there long enough to even earn a black belt in most cases. So how are these guys coming back with fourth, fifth, sixth degree black belts?
Right.
Well, you start investigating and getting information and talking to
Right.
people.
Right.
People who live in Okinawa, people who've been in Okinawa. Won't name names, but people who live in Okinawa that are famous and known and write books. And you ask questions and they tell you, they're like,
Right.
I've seen the records. This guy was here for a year and a half. He was a green belt. He made a great arrangement
Right.
to spread an art. So they gave him a second degree black belt.
Right. Right.
And if you don't know anything about the art, you don't know the difference between a green belt and a second degree black belt, right?
Right.
But if you think about that today, right, sir? You take a green belt. And now I think standards are different. Most of our green belts are great. But let's say you take somebody with a year experience and you tell them they're going to go run your art in another country. That doesn't mean these people can't fight.
Right.
But when you're talking about, there's some guys that are like, oh, the real Goju and the real. How real is it? Because you're a student of a student of a student of a student who trained for a year and a half, who trained with a guy who really didn't train with the founder of an art, but said he did.
Right.
Right? So it's
Right.
like, how close to the material are you? And is that important in a fight? Not necessarily. But if you're going to pass something off as being authentic, it should be
Right. Right.
that, right? That's why I tell people I am a Japanese inspired martial art, Okinawan Japanese inspired martial art, but this is a New York, Bronx, Puerto Rican guy
Right.
who founded the art. So, I
Right.
mean, if you want to meditate and wear a man bun, I'm not the guy for you.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not very big into like spirituality stuff in it. It's not me.
Right.
I'm more of what gets you through the hard times is physically doing, right? I had cancer, I beat cancer, and I use martial arts to do that. I use my
Right.
martial arts community to do that. Most of the people who visited me in the hospital were martial artists, actually, as
Wow.
opposed to family. Believe it
Wow.
or not. Like 3 aunts. I had 2 cousins that were really, really there. My sister, obviously, my mother, but like more majority of people. I'd have people come in that I never even met in person. People that came from like Boston and all over the place just to see me because they were in the hospital. Like, yeah, I follow you on Facebook.
It's
What?
awesome.
I
That's
thought it
awesome.
was crazy. They would
Yeah.
come and visit, and
Yeah.
uh, the martial arts community is a beautiful thing. But anyways, so I use it for that, and I don't feel like meditating is gonna make me a better person or maybe I'm wrong in this, but I don't think meditating is gonna make me heal. I think training, doing kata and breathing and physically doing the stuff is what's gonna heal me.
Right.
So I just speak my mind, and these people sometimes like it, some people don't.
Right.
And I
Right.
just try to be honest, especially like
Right.
sword stuff, right? I had posted a sword, I've been posting sword videos, and I posted one in a group, and this guy's like, did you clean your sword with your gi? Because there's a chiburi we have when we go here, we clean it. I'm like,
Right. Right.
yeah. Why? And he's like, oh, it's disrespectful to your uniform. And I'm like, bro, if I'm in the street and I'm stabbing somebody with a sword, the last thing I'm thinking about is the ritual.
Right. 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 Right.
And I see his videos and he's moving like a robot. I'm like, bro, I would have stabbed you 50 times before you draw your sword. Like, and the thing is, the way you train is the way you're gonna fight. Even if I'm here by myself alone, swinging the sword, I'm still doing it with the intent that I'm not by myself and there's four
Right.
people in the room.
Right. But Kevin, that's that falsehood, right? And we go back to what you talked about, green belts and people getting rank. Even in the Korean arts, they were very big. You had black belts that came over that went from first dan to fifth dan when they went from one ocean to the next, right?
Yep.
And then people are talking about, oh, well, they can't be eighth dan, they can't be ninth dan. This, it's one thing I look at this is, and I don't know if you agree or not on this, but obviously the proof's in the pudding, right? And you could tell someone's technique. But the other thing I'll say is the art and what we're teaching, right? And what we're trying to do and how we're trying to help our students and be better people. You know, not every high-ranking person is a good human being either. You know what I mean? Not every
Right.
person that's not right. So like what do we, you know what I mean? Really, what is this thing? And again, it's that cultish, excuse me, atmosphere that martial arts has done. Because again, as a kid, I can tell you, you know, I looked up to my master. He was the greatest thing ever. The man could walk on water. I wanted to be him. I wanted to look like him, you know, and you know, obviously we grow up and we really learn what the world is about. And you're like,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes it's very desperate, you know, depressing. But,
Mhm.
you know, I feel like we have to reverse that culture. It's the same thing as, you know, us growing up as young Latino men, you know, our fathers and our families, right? They were taught to work hard, right? There was no, you know, a lot of hugs and besos and this. The fathers were
Yeah.
always kicking your, you know, they were tough on you. It's tough
Right,
love,
right.
right. Your mom was there. Mom was, you know, tried to be there for you, but dads, they didn't. It was a different culture back then. Where
Very
now,
much.
right, it's up to us to kind of reverse that cycle, you know. But
Mhm.
but yeah, it's funny you know you saying that about that. And then again, you know, I've seen the things that you post as far as, you know, when you're talking about technique and then you'll correct it and then somebody chimes in to then correct you, which is like, but people get off on that, right? They're like, oh, I need to prove you wrong. Like it's very unfortunate the way that society and
Right.
humanity has gone these last couple, you know, decades, not just years, decades, you
Yeah.
know.
I agree 1,000,000%. And what's funny is you'll have people that are like, oh, we're martial artists. People look up to us, and we have to be this way. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, there's a mirror. Remember
Right,
that.
right,
Because a
right,
lot of these people who make these comments, I mean, I don't know everybody, but I know people in general, human beings, drink, hang out, smoke. We're human, right?
right,
They're like, oh, well, the great masters. Well, you didn't know them that well because most of them hung out in whorehouses. And it's the truth. There's a guy, Matobu Choki, Matobu Ru, he's famous for not being one of those people who conform, right? So he didn't want to kiss up to the Japanese, but he got mad that Funakoshi did. And he had his beef with Funakoshi, but he was someone who was very outspoken about martial art. Real martial art doesn't look pretty. You only need one kata if you want to really hurt somebody.
right.
If you ain't hanging out with women, there's something wrong with you. That's the way these masters spoke.
Different
And I'm
time.
like, but now, things different. Now they want to be, and I get it. There's a market we're on. The thing for me is like I tell people I don't teach children. I haven't taught children in a very long time. The only people that are children that I teach are my own, right? At this point. And my page is my page. So if I want to post a funny meme, if I want to whatever it is, it's on me. They feel, oh, well, because you write articles, people are looking at you, but I'm a human being. I want people to realize that I'm a human being who, you know, has mental health concerns. And I have ADHD and I beat cancer and I have other illnesses. I have autoimmune diseases. Like I'm a human who's constantly going through obstacles. I'm not some monk
Right,
because
right.
somebody decided that I have a certain rank and skill level in their art. Now that makes me holier than everyone else? No. Like I don't get that.
Yeah,
Do I try to be more conscious of certain things? Absolutely.
right, right,
That's why I kind of tone down,
right,
certain things that I say on my the posts that I make. Because I
right.
know sometimes also when you go into another person's school, your reputation carries with you, right? So if you're, I'll share a story. I have a student, a good friend of mine, excuse me, Hank Minitrek. I'm gonna give him his credit. Um, he does public relations for the Coast Guard, and he used to work in the Pentagon, and he was in the Army for over 20 years. Very straight laced guy, great martial artist, very strict. He had a school here in Virginia, and I would come every now and then. So one time we were having a seminar, and he's like, and I'm like, how are the signups? And he's like, I'm like, what happened? And he's like, can I be transparent? I said, yeah. He's like, it's your language. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I know you're not teaching kids, but I have kids. And the people aren't going to your seminar and kids, they're teenagers. But, Virginia is a very much a Bible state. So
Okay.
these people see you, dropping F bombs or whatever, and they get a little put off because they think when they get to the seminar, you're going to speak them. I'm like, I get it. So I had to kind of like, he helped me reinvent that part of myself because I'm like, well, I'm trying to be me. He said, you can be you, but you can also be a professional you sometimes too. Man,
Right.
so sometimes, even when we're, at the time I was probably in my early 30s, this was a long time ago. Um, sometimes you get in your own head. You're like, well, I want to stay true to me. I want to stay true to myself. And I'm going to try to stay true to certain values where I felt like I had to be real because I felt like a lot of the times in training, people BS you,
Right.
where it's like, oh, what's the application to this movement? Oh, don't worry about it. Well, I need to worry about it because I might have to use it, right? Or, why am I doing this? Oh, don't worry, just do. Or I'm going to say it like this, just do, don't ask questions.
Yeah.
That's exactly how you would say it. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't think this would work in the street. I told him just like that.
Right.
No, no, you must do, just do. Stop asking questions. I
Right.
remember one time I was teaching I was in a white belt class, teaching in the class, and I was showing an application for someone to get the down move. They couldn't figure it out. And I got pulled to the side. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm helping them pick up the movement. They're like, yeah, but you're showing them too much. What?
How are you
So
sure?
I made it a vow that if I ever had a school, if you come in the first day, you're learning what everyone else is doing. We do a knife attack. You're learning how to defend a knife today on your first day. Merry Christmas.
Right. Right. Right.
That's my belief system because you can leave the school and get jumped,
Right.
especially in the Bronx, right? And I would have students come to me the next day like, yo, Gian, I did the thing that you taught me the other day. I'm like, what are you talking about? So, you know the thing with the umbrella? Yeah, I did it. And I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, I was in the train station and this happened and I choked somebody with my umbrella. And I'm like, cool.
There you
And
go.
these are beginners. I used to teach a lot of corrections and bouncers. And I saw one student of mine take out two guys by himself, and he was a
Oh,
yellow belt.
nice.
He invited me to the club that he was bouncing at. It was me and one of my black belts. And he got busy. And he's calling for backup, and no one's helping him. And he's like locking these dudes up. And I'm like, yo, I told him that. But
That's
that's
all.
my thing is just I felt like I have to be authentic in whatever I do. Be real, be transparent. Yes, I have ADHD. Yes, I have an autoimmune disease. Yes, I can no longer make a fist because I broke my finger on the way to Virginia.
Uh,
But I work around these things.
right.
I don't let things that would make other people just shut themselves down, shut me down. I
Right.
think it's become a part of my uniqueness, especially this thing. This is something that's taken me a while to get over. Uh, like even manipulating weapons and doing certain techniques, I can't make a fist like this anymore.
Okay. Wow.
So on the way down here, just to speed the story up, I got my hand caught between my car door and the cab of the U-Haul truck my brother-in-law was driving.
Oh my God.
And we stopped to have a conversation. And when I went to go hand my kid her coffee, I'm a lefty. So I went like this. They were on this side. I put my hand on the car door and I slid it down to kind of come in and close the door. And that's when I got caught. So I
Oh,
don't know if you saw pictures online, but this phone was down here. Like my finger was hanging down here.
oh man.
So they had to do two surgeries. They did one with pins and it didn't set correctly. So they had to do another one with a titanium plate and 6 screws.
Oh man.
So because of that, this is my range of motion on my finger. It's this.
Wow.
And
Wow.
then this finger, I tore a tendon, so I can't tuck it in all the time. It's sticking
Okay.
out. So this
Wow.
is pretty much my fist. So if you ever see me do cutting, I'm like, why is this hand like that? That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I think
Hey,
I was flipping something off. I'm like, no, it's my index.
that's your index figure. Yeah. Now, Kevin, real quick, just to let you know, we do have some viewers that will log in, say hello, give questions or whatever. But we actually have one of our viewers, um, Vimal Jagu from Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh
So
wow.
he's chiming in. Yeah. He's chiming in. Let me see. I'll put up. So Vimal said, good to hear you kicked cancer's butt. He said he lost family to cancer as well. So if you could just say a quick shout out, just say, hello to Vimal because he logged in. He's been watching the whole show.
Thank you, Bimo. I appreciate that, man. I'm sorry for your loss. I lost a lot of family members. Both my grandfathers to cancer. One was throat, the other one was prostate. I've
Wow.
lost 3 uncles to it. Two of my aunts, three of my aunts actually beat breast cancer twice.
Wow.
I had an uncle that had bone cancer 7 times, and on the eighth time it took him.
Wow.
So it definitely runs in my family.
What kind of
So
cancer did you? What kind of cancer did you have,
deal with your loss.
Kevin? What kind of cancer did you beat?
I had testicular cancer that masticated to my liver, kidney, stomach, and the lymph nodes in my back.
Wow.
The original plan of treatment, where they were supposed to cut me open, make a zipper, remove all my organs. They're going to take the lymph nodes all out, all the cancerous stuff, put everything back, and then do chemo. But I got really sick at the DMV renewing my driver's license. Like I started throwing up actual blood, not even just
Wow.
Bible blood.
Wow.
They called me an ambulance. I went to the ER, and they're like, "Well, we know that you have cancer. Well, usually stuff like this doesn't worry us, but let's check." And it started spreading. So they're like, "We need to admit you now. We need to do chemo now." Um, so yeah, I went through chemo. It was like 6 or 7 months, but it was like 6 days a week. Like, there was no real breaks. Even on holidays, I had to admit myself to the hospital so I could be treated on the holidays because the chemo suites were closed, like on Christmas and New Year's.
Wow.
So I spent Christmas and New Year's that year in 2018 in the hospital.
Wow. Wow. God
And I
bless.
was still, funny enough, competing. I competed uh, weapons and kata at Master Dave Thomas's tournament that year. And I remember Master Mike Simmons saw me. He's like, I went over, he was like, "Bro, don't you have cancer?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" I'm like, "Winning a tournament."
That's what's up. That's
I
what's
was
up.
bald. I had no eyebrows. I have a picture on my Facebook with me and my student Jose, and he's holding up the medals next to me, and I'm like, real like super. I lost a lot of weight,
Wow.
and I thought I did it now. I did it myself. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing keto. Little though I know I had cancer and it was killing me, and I had no idea.
Wow.
Like by the time they caught it, it was already on the verge of stage 4, and then it started mass staging.
And you beat
Like
it,
crazy.
but you beat the stage 4. That's crazy.
I
Wow. God bless.
had 20% chance of survival.
Wow.
Yeah, and I did Tensho Kata every day. Not to say Tensho saved me, but Tensho definitely has a place in my heart.
That's
That's the
awesome.
one I've seen it. I
Yeah.
do it a lot. And
Wow.
that one I did it in my hospital bed when I couldn't stand. And when I could stand, I got up and did it. And nurses like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Kata."
Wow. We have another one. I don't know if this is someone you know. They have not logged into my show before. Uh, Manuela Levine. Is that someone that you know?
Yes, I know
Oh,
him through Facebook.
oh,
Thank you,
nice,
my brother.
nice.
Yeah, he's out in Puerto Rico. He's a really good martial artist. He does a lot of good Chinese and Filipino martial arts.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, he logged in. You may want to give him a quick shout out, Kevin. He's logged in.
I appreciate you showing love all the way from La Isla Bonita.
That's crazy. Wow. So Kevin, so you talked about you competing. Are you're competing now, not competing? When's the last time you competed?
The last time I competed, geez, Who's tournament 2022, I
Oh, that's
think.
GJ Torres's.
DJ Torres. I have the belt and 2 trophies over there because I had took grand in weapons and grand in kata.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was the last time.
Nice. Okay. Okay.
I mean, it's fun. My thing is this. I'm gonna say this. I, I know you run events. People run events. They're gonna get mad when I say this. For me, I understand. I think in the beginning it helps a lot. Sometimes when you first, start getting students, they need to see you compete so they can get the guts to do it.
Right.
But after a while, I tell people, I'm like, I don't feel like paying $60 to show someone a kata that they've never seen before.
Right. 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 Right.
I know
Yeah.
it sounds horrible, but the truth, like actually, when I competed, 2 people asked me, "What kata is that? I've never seen it before."
Oh wow.
And I told them, I'm like, it's called Niseishi. It's actually like a white belt kata. But I
Wow.
know no one's seen it, so I did it. And
Right.
it's funny because guys are doing like super impe and these long katas, kanku, and I'm doing like a beginner kata at this point. And I'm like,
Right.
well,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
worked out. But I tell people it's not the kata, it's the intensity and the intent, and that makes the difference. When you
Right.
see people thinking about their kata, you're like, yeah, you're not gonna get a great score. But when you
Right.
just whoop, you go. And yeah, so that's my take on it now. It's like if someone says, "Hey, I want you to compete, don't worry about the fee. I'm gonna show up and do it." But if I have to go out of my own pocket, I know it's gonna. I'm telling you, I'm cheap. If I have to come out of my own pocket
Yeah.
to do a kata for someone who doesn't never seen my kata, because most of the judges never seen. There's certain kata they you see all the time,
And then there are
and
ones
there's
that you
something
don't see all the time, right? Yeah.
yeah, like I have a version of Unshu that I do that it's super like not a lot of people seen it. It looks nothing like the Shoto kata.
Right.
Very different. Um, and I remember I posted it in a group, and one person recognized it. And he said, finally, someone who does the kata like I do.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, I do the same one.
That's
And
awesome.
it's I've been looking everywhere just to see somebody else do the kata the same way. But everyone, you think Unsu, you think the Shotokan.
Correct. Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
calling it the six shooter kata.
Yeah, 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 yeah. They're shooting somebody. Yeah, yeah, shooting somebody.
Yeah,
Yep.
but when you see a lot of these original versions of the kata before like Gigo and Gishin Funakoshi got their hands on it, they look so different. There's no side kicks. Everything's a front kick. Or knees. There's a lot of knees in these Okinawan katas, um, especially the Naha ones. You see all the knees, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. I got a chance to study a little bit of an art called Kojoru. It's it's supposed to be, I'm saying this 'cause I don't know how true it is, but it's supposed to be one of the oldest arts in Okinawa. That's kind
Oh,
of rare, and they don't have dan. Apparently, once you get a black belt, you're a black belt. That's it. Like there's no
oh
dan
wow.
rank.
Right.
And the kata are crazy. I'm talking like they look, most kata are pretty symmetrical. I do this here, I do this. No. Like if you ask me to do it now, I'm gonna. It's been a while. I have to watch my old videos of me doing it. Oh yeah, cool. But even the beginner one, like the white belt kata, is like 50 movements, and it looks like a black belt kata in another style. Like it's crazy.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I try to when I do it, I try to pull out something that people don't do, like tonfa or kata won't see me because everyone does Seiuchin and all these other katas.
Wow. Now, Kevin, what do you have? So, what does the future have planned for Kevin? What is your goals moving into the future of 2025 and beyond?
Taking over the world. No, I'm joking. My my goal eventually is to start a commercial location from the basement. So, like I mentioned to you a little earlier, my house is already zoned as a business in the town because oddly enough, it was a funeral home.
Wow.
So I live in what used to be a funeral home. The section of the basement that I use for my dojo is about 1,100 square feet. And my wife started putting together things like we have a little coffee machine and we have a cooler and all these different things and trying to set everything up nice, even though I don't really have group classes, just privates here. But
Right.
that's the goal. I want to offer the people in this community something different
Nice.
because right now they only have Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. That's about a mile up the road from where I live. Um, and they have like a Hawaiian Kempo school, like 50 minutes away. That's pretty much it. There really isn't much. So I know I said I don't teach kids, but if I have to start teaching little ones again, I think it's time. But I'll
Yeah.
put a limit. You got to be at least like 8 years old because I don't want to deal with preschoolers anymore.
Right. Right. Right.
But that's
Wow.
the goal is to do that.
Good.
I wrote some articles in the past for a couple of publications. I want to do more of that. I haven't, put anything out in about a year, so I want to do more of that. I want to try to get more videos out there, more educational stuff, whatever I can that people are just curious about. If people want to ask me, hey, here's a topic, talk about it, or here's a subject I want to know more about, I'm open to receiving those suggestions too, and I'm, wanting to make the videos. Uh, that's pretty much it. Just trying to give back, And I think
Awesome.
I want to set up a women's self defense thing too here. I tried to do it a few months back. I tried to offer it, and no one really bit.
Right.
Because again, I'm in the country.
Right.
Nothing really happens here. 90% of the people have guns. Like
Right.
it's a fact. Like
Right.
my neighbor's a sheriff, deputy sheriff, and one of the first things he told me, he goes, "It's legal. Guns are legal here." He goes, you need a permit to conceal, but not to open carry. And you can also keep it in your glove compartment without a permit. I'm like, really? He goes, everyone has a gun here. Everyone. I'm like, is that true? So as I'm meeting people, like I met the Puerto Rican family I told you about, they all have, she's got hot pink gun, her husband's got a gun, her daughter's got rifles. I'm like, geez. So it's like people here are inherently nicer to each other, especially on the road. Because the dude's probably got a gun in his truck.
Yeah. He's packing. He's packing. Yeah.
He's packed. And the thing about it is that here is all like I'm gonna paint this picture for the audience. Think Smallville, Kansas, Superman. It's really like that. Like when I drive, I see cows and horses.
Okay.
We have foxes in our yards, and my dog loves to chase those. I have a 60-pound pit bull. He goes crazy when he sees them. So fox, deers. I mean, we see families of them just hanging out in our yard. So it's very different. So it's not like the Bronx where I'm going to leave my house and I might get hurt. Like I'm going to go from my driveway to my car, drive to the store, walk into the store, and come home. So it's like I still think it's a valuable tool to have because you never, ever, ever, ever know.
Right. Right.
And I put it out there, and nobody really bit, but I want to try to put it out there. I'm trying to get in contact with maybe some local colleges or community centers to try to get people
Get a
into
move.
it. Yeah, I wrote a letter actually yesterday to my daughter's high school to see if maybe we could start something with those kids. And she
Nice.
just got her cell phone announced. She got herself a little boyfriend now. So he wants to train. So I said to myself, maybe he could be my Miguel Diaz from Cobra Kai.
That's funny. That's funny. That's
It's
awesome.
funny. He seems like a nice kid. He's a decent kid. He picked her up for Valentine's Day, took her out, took her to dinner. He has a job already. He's only 15.
Nice.
Work, pays
Okay.
for the dinner, brought her
Is he
back with
Boricua? Is
bags.
he
Yeah,
Kevin?
I'm like,
Is he Boricua?
he's
Kevin?
Mexican.
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 Okay. Okay.
And that's what they have over here. It's like a lot of Mexicans. And I'm not to
Right.
say that in a bad way. Nobody take that wrong. But
Right.
it's mostly like Mexican, El Salvadorian, and like Guatemalan in this area.
Okay.
Um, we try to drive out to like a more heavily Hispanic area to see if maybe we'll find like maybe some of us. Um, it's rare. It's hard. Like unless you go to Richmond, is only South Americans, and then when you look for Latin food, it's all, you know, that stuff. So it's hard to get certain things. My wife went to Florida to visit her niece, and her niece brought a Dominican salami that's big.
Oh my God.
And she's half Dominican, so she's like, I haven't had that salami in forever. You can't buy it over here. We couldn't find it anywhere.
Wow.
So that, but yeah. So it's hard to get people interested, but I really, really want to try.
Wow.
To just try to help people in any way that I can, even if I gotta give a free class, because I've done a lot of it. I've taught autistic children for free in the past. I've taught old folks for free in the past. I've taught people in wheelchairs for free in the past. Because for me, it's not about the money. The value for me is giving back something that I know is going to help them because it's helping
Right.
me.
Right. Right. Now, Kevin, we've been on almost an hour now, and I want to say you've been awesome, and you have not name dropped, and you've been good. You've been good. So I'm going to stir the pot for one last thing before the hour comes up. My question
Okay.
is, you've got into a lot of battles online on Facebook, commenting people back and forth. Is there one specific thing that has stood out from all the comments, all the whatever? Like, is there one thing that you're like, man, I still can't believe this person said this, or not even saying them, a specific topic that kind of was like burned you up. You know what I mean? That still burns you up to this day. Is there anything that still bothers you? You know what I mean at this point, or are you like, nah, I'm
Oh,
good now?
I have pet peeves. Like I'm just that person. I kind of have I can have a Sheldon Cooper. If you ever watch Big Bang Theory, kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
personality. Like when people say Bo staff, it drives me insane.
Right, because they're
Because
double saying the name.
you're saying the same thing twice in different languages, drives me nuts. Things like that. Or people who say they're teaching Taekwondo. They're like, yeah, we're going to do Kibadachi. That's Japanese. We're going to the dojo. So you teach Taekwondo, but you don't know it's called a dojo.
Okay.
Like,
Right.
things like that do bother me. It's more like my icks, but I don't really have like a single, because most of these people who run their mouths, I've invited them to come out. And I say, you can take it however you want, but spend an afternoon with me.
Right.
That's all I ask them. Let's
Right.
train.
Right.
Because the biggest thing that I used to get, I don't get it as much anymore, but I've gotten in the past is obviously I don't have a six pack. And people have this perception. I'm like, you've obviously never seen any of these old masters, Miyagi, any of them, even when they were young. Masayama, they did not have six packs. Bruce Lee had one, but not them.
Right.
They think that six pack equals deadly martial arts.
Right. Right. Right.
I'm
Right.
like, you've obviously, even the UFC, people say, but in the UFC, Roy Nelson knocks people out all the time, heavy set guy. Daniel Cormier, heavy set guy, knocks people out, chokes them out. Your size does not denote your skill. So those are some of the things that sometimes I'm like, come see me, come
Right.
work out with me.
Right.
I had a guy that I met online, good friends now, Canadian kickboxing champion, badass dude, came to meet me, and we're lifting because he's like, "Oh, what do you want to do first?" I'm like, "Well, I usually lift and then I hit the bag." He's like, "What?" Okay, so I'm lifting. He's like, "Bro, you're strong." He's like, because he was like ripped. He's like, "I'm a strong guy, bro, but you're strong. Like I'm outlifting him." And I'm like, "Yeah." Like I don't want to say I know, but I'm like, "Yeah, I'm all right." And then I'm hitting the pads. And he's like, "Damn." And then he's trying to coach me because he used to coach. And he's like, "You're very coachable." I'm like, "Yeah, because I know I don't know everything. I don't know everything. I'm here to learn."
Right.
I did the Gracie combatives classes when I was in Brooklyn. I used to go on the Sundays and train with them. Professor Rick Ricard, shout out to him. He teaches in 10th Planet. He's a Marcelo Garcia black belt, and he teaches in his house for free Gracie combatives. Amazing program, amazing human being.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it's like my thing is come see me, come train with me, come get to know me. Because it's very easy to misconstrue a minute video, a 2 minute video, a topic, because we might not agree on one topic, but we might agree on something else, right? Because
Right.
people can agree to disagree all the time. I mean, everything I agree with my wife is not going to agree with right away, but I still love her and we're married, right?
Right. Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I really not in that. I wouldn't say it in particular thing, but the icks, like those things, the bow staffs, people throwing up weapons and doing backflips and catching them. I know it takes skill, but it's not martial arts to me, and that drives me crazy because people think if it's karate, it's that. Otherwise, the only thing that works is MMA. So that's what gets me. Is more the idea that people are thinking that I do something that I don't because of what other people are perpetuating.
Right. 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 Well, Kevin, first of all, I want to thank you for coming and joining us tonight. Um, I always ask all of my guests, what do you want before they leave? What do you want your legacy to know by? Obviously, you've had a great career. You're doing a lot. You're doing a new phase now in your life in Virginia. But what do you want to be known, your legacy to be when people think about you?
I want them to think of me, and I've actually had to think about this right back in 2018 when I didn't know if I was going to make it.
Right, right,
I
right,
want people to think of me as someone who speaks his mind, works hard, gives back. That's it. I'm very honest. I try to do as much. I mean, I have 2 15 minutes of breaks in my workday. Instead of relaxing, I throw on my gi and I do something. After work, I throw on my gi and I do something. I try to do something every day. Why in a gi? Because it changes your mindset, especially if you're training at home. It's very hard to get yourself up and start training if you're in your pajamas the entire time.
right,
If I say I'm going to put myself in my doba, my karate gi, now I'm transported
right,
somewhere else. Okay,
right,
I'm ready to go somewhere. I'm dressed up and ready to party, right? So I just want people to think of that. Somebody who never gave up. He had cancer. Oh, he did kata in the hospital with IV on and chemo. And it was live on Facebook. Like things like that, that I'm someone who just doesn't give up. I keep pushing and I keep pushing, and I want people to be that way. I want other people to see my example. Say, if this guy is not letting cancer or autoimmune diseases and the fact that he can't close his hands stop him from training, what's stopping me? Because there's a
right,
lot of guys out there who have a lot to offer, and I feel like they should be making videos.
right,
I feel like they should be giving back more. And I feel like instead of criticizing others, they should be doing something.
right, right. Now, Kevin, if anyone wants to train with you, how can they find you? Is there a website? Is Facebook the best? What's the best way somebody can find you?
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. So my TikTok is Hanchi KP 81. My Instagram is my path number 2 greatness, and then my Facebook. So they can just inbox me, DM me, and then we can do, privates online, privates in person, privates on the beach, whatever you like.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, for my viewers that logged in today, thank you guys so much for joining us. I think Kevin shared a lot of things today. Obviously, he's a master Shihan. I know he doesn't like to do titles and all that other stuff, but he's a well-versed man in a lot of different styles. So, if you're interested in training with him, obviously he's an expert in very many weapons. And make sure if you train with him, you either say bow or staff, not Bo staff, because he's going to kick you out of the school. So make sure you do that. But Kevin, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you. I wish you the best in Virginia. Hopefully, you know what I mean, we can stay in contact. And again, thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. So thank you, Kevin. All of our viewers, have a great night, guys. Be blessed, and we'll catch you on the next one. We have a big episode coming up at the end of next week, which is February 28th, and we'll be posting a new one. Have a great night, guys. Bye-bye.
Take care. Oyasumi nasai.